think we're back now. It says reconnection successful. I My wireless modem here at home has two different networks that it broadcasts at different frequencies. And when I was crashing the other day, I was on the one that's supposed to be the faster of the two networks, but it doesn't necessarily have as long of a reach. I don't know if that's because I'm in the far corner of the house for that. So I don't know if it's been having trouble maintaining the connection. So anyway, we're going to try my other network and see how that works. Let me know for sure in the chat if I'm back for you. It says I'm streaming again. All right. Thanks. All right, so we're going to do focus on a warm brown for her hair. This looks like a decent start, decent starting color. What is this? Rotbraun. I'm guessing that's red brown in maybe German. I don't know. My guess is that this is not going to be too different from what's on there already, but hey, Lena, I'm glad to see you. I'm glad you finally made one live. How's your day going? Is Kingdom Death as brutal as everyone says it is? Is it basically like A Million Ways to Die? If you die that often, how do you progress through like experience? Do you get to carry it with you from one character to the next, or how do you actually make your survivor more powerful? Or do you just have to hope that you don't die? that dries, I'm going to do some other stuff too. I always like to have, not always, but I often like to have two spots on the model that I'm working on at any given time so I can go back and forth as things dry. Yeah, it'll dull down as it dries. It also looks a little brighter on camera. See if I can adjust the settings a little bit. Color is a little warm. It's a little closer. Yeah, it looks a lot darker in person. But I'm also going, this is just a base coat. There'll be lots of shading. When I'm doing her hair, I may not do this hair as lustrous as I sometimes do. Healthy, clean hair has a good shine to it. But I'm not really sure, looking at this model, that this particular character is really all that worried about having just washed her hair in Pantene Pro V or something like that. I would guess she's probably a little worse off for wear, so I'm not going to make it super reflective probably. We'll just see what happens. Really what I want for try it out. I think I want something darker. I agree. And even though I probably won't, I won't totally like smudge her all up, her skin and stuff, but I did make sure to go in and put, blemishes and stuff on the skin so that it didn't look like a porcelain doll. Well, I have literally nothing going on today. some things I should probably be doing. Next week I'll be going to a conference where I have to do a presentation. I need to write my presentation. I probably should work on that some. But I'm going to paint quite a bit in the beginning of this day and maybe do a little bit of assembly later. Maybe work on my presentation some tonight. What about you, Heath? What do you got going on? What are you cooking, Lena? You gonna make us jealous by what's your menu for tonight? By the way, I was mixing camo dark brown into the US dark brown color to get a little lighter, in case people are keeping track at home. So it's shortened, it's called the RUME Conference, RUME. It's the Research in Undergraduate Mathematics Education Conference. So it focuses on doing research on student learning in undergraduate mathematics courses. But it really it covers a lot of things. It covers also working with teachers because of the influence of pre-service teacher preparation programs in college. It can go anywhere from college algebra to like advanced mathematics, like combinatorics and number theory and things like that. So there's actually a pretty wide range of specialty areas there. It's a 3-day conference in San Diego and a lot of other stuff too. There's working groups where you're meeting with people from across the country that you might be in partnership with on some different projects and things. So I know on the first day we have a big group with a bunch of people from across the country who are using some of the curriculum materials and course stuff that we've designed. So we're doing a big thing with that. Yeah, so I have a paper that was accepted. And as part of that, you then go do a presentation on the subject of your paper. It's about a half-hour presentation, and then people ask you questions. Nothing special, just some mushrooms, garlic, cheese. Sounds delicious. Gore what? I'm not sure what that means. Oh, what do I do for a career? So I work in mathematics education. I used to be a high school math teacher. But then I got a job working for Arizona State University. So I do a lot of things there. We study student learning. We study teachers. We develop and study the implementation of different curriculum materials. Go to conferences and do presentations. Try to fix the world, that kind of thing. I also do a lot of professional development training for teachers who are in service. So I go out to schools and districts. They'll hire me to come out and work with their teachers. That could be a thing. Like the word Gorewat stands for I have fat fingers. Like if you make a typo or something, you just say Gorewat. What I'm doing is, right now as I'm base coating all the leather areas, obviously in this darker brown, the one decision that I have to make at this point, well, within the next few minutes, is she's got these gloves, these leather gloves, and she also obviously has leather boots on. Now, I'm tempted to just do all the leather in exactly the same color. That's obviously easier for me. I don't have to mix up different stuff. I can do it all at the same time. However, it's probably not very realistic. In truth, they're probably all different types of leather. The gloves are going to be more supple. The straps probably weren't sold at the same boot store she got her boots at. So, they're not going to be a perfect match. So for the sake of realism, I will probably vary the leather colors slightly. So for right now, I'm just going to focus on doing her leather belts and straps and stuff. Yeah, so far the green on her shirt was done with the scale Warfront colors, which is really, really nice and matte. These browns I'm doing right now seem to be coming out really matte. So they're definitely more like their scale color line as opposed to their fantasy and games line, which are more of a satin finish. Yeah, so far they seem like just more colors to add to their scale color line. Lots of nice greens and browns. That was one of my complaints about the scale color line. I tend to like more olive greens, greens with more yellow in them. I don't really like cool greens with more blue, and it seemed to me that a lot of the greens that they had in their other lines tended towards the cooler greens. So I've been quite happy with the selection in the Warfront paints. Yeah, do black boots? Maybe. Those will probably be the last things I paint on her, so black for the boots might be nice because it'll kind of complement the black on the guns. I'm also planning, I bought some pigments, some dry pigments. I've never used those on models before. My plan was to use those on the base for this model and also start to dust up her boots a bit using those and just start learning how to use pigments. So I'll paint the boots all up like I normally would, and then I'm going to go in and do some pigment work on them. So we'll see how that turns out. Black's probably a pretty good base for that. Yeah, I've heard the pigments can rub off. Did you use the pigment fixer? I bought the pigment fixer. It's supposed to help hold them in place. And then I usually varnish my models afterwards. But also this is a display model, so stuff rubbing off is not as big of a concern as like models for games. Yeah, we'll see how the pigment fixer works for me. I mean, obviously I've never worked with pigments before, so I don't really know. Probably go look up some YouTube videos and things before I start. I have to take stock too of the pigments I bought, see if I might need some different colors, order some more, or go check out the store. There's so many out there. I only bought like 4 or 5, I think. Such a wide range of colors available. I didn't really have this model in mind when I bought them. I don't think I'd actually even started painting her yet. Channeling our inner Bob Ross. Just happy little accidents. I actually had Bob Ross on the brain last night. One of the things I would really like to do with some models, I don't know if I'll do it for Allie here, but I want to start doing for some display models is start creating backdrops. So paint like scenes that are behind them. Start creating a little bit more of an atmosphere for the model. And I just was kind of imagining watching Bob Ross to see how he paints some landscapes and things, and use those techniques to do in miniature on some plastic art or something behind the models. One model I really want to try that with, I bought a couple Hellboy miniatures. So one of them is just like a 32 millimeter scale Hellboy with, his cloak. It's like a full body model. And then I also have a bust. But I was thinking it'd be really cool to have Hellboy perched on top of some masonry. But then the actual panels from the comic book are very like geometric in design. They're not all that. I don't think they would be that tough to replicate. And so actually like take a panel from the comic book and try to like sort of repaint it as a backdrop on them. Obviously not with any characters, but like the statues and things that you usually see in that book if you've ever read it. Very iconic. It would be really cool. I think it's supposed to be Resident Evil. She looks a lot like Mila Jovovich. But I can't be sure. I mean, they're never going to say either because of copyright issues. They'll say just, oh, the likeness was unintentional. But it could also be that whoever sculpted her was kind of channeling both characters. Was channeling a little bit of the Mila Jovovich look, but also the Lara Croft Tomb Raider clothing and guns and speaking of models, did you guys see the previews for the Harry Potter game, Harry Potter miniatures? It's interesting. I first saw teaser pics of those, I would say probably like this time last year. And at the time, I thought the rumor was that they were going to be launching a miniatures game, kind of like their Batman game or something like that. near the end of last year. And then everything kind of went quiet for a while. And then they just recently announced that it's going to launch on Kickstarter next month. And that it's actually going to be a board game as opposed to a miniatures game. But they claim that the models are going to be in high quality resin as opposed to the board game plastic that they often use. Or other companies often use. So I'm intrigued. The models are pretty cool. I'm not the biggest Harry Potter fan in the world, but I like it well enough, and I think the models have a lot of character to them. It'll probably all depend on the price. This looks like a pretty in-depth board game, and with all those models, I wonder what they're going to be asking for it. So if you, Mr. Heath, if you go search for Knight Models, K-N-I-G-T, Knight Models, you can go through Facebook or Twitter or whatever, or even Instagram. You should be able to find bunches of pictures there. They've been pushing them pretty hard lately, so it should be easy to find the pictures on their social media stuff. Board games are always tricky for me these days in terms of buying. At the moment, I don't really have a very regular gaming group anymore. My wife and I play a lot of games, but we tend to like things like Ticket to Ride and stuff like that. So much more in-depth games that take a long time or that require multiple levels of strategy just tends to not be what we play together. So when I see something like the Harry Potter board game, I wonder how much I would get play out of it. So I'd probably really just be buying it for the miniatures. I wonder if there'll be a buy-in that you can just get the miniatures instead of the game. I doubt it, but so one game that I've been enjoying a lot lately when I can get some of my gaming buddies together. We've played it through twice, but it's been pretty fun. It's called Merchants and Marauders. So I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's like a Pirates of the Caribbean type game, but like, real, set in the real world. And you just you start off. You can choose your starting ship from two different ships, and one of them's better for pirating, and one of them's better for doing, merchant type runs. And there's it's a really kind of open concept sandbox game where there's a whole bunch of different ways you can get victory points. And you have to be the first person to 10 points. You can do that by any combination of merchant activities, pirate activities, doing big things that would make you famous, like taking down a Dutch naval vessel or something like that. You get these renown points, and so you have to be the first person to 10. So we've enjoyed the heck out of that game the last couple times we've gotten together. So I didn't end up buying those mouse guard models yet. I held off because I'm trying not to buy any new models this year. I say as I just described the Harry Potter game that's coming out in March, but I backed a bunch of Kickstarters the last couple of years, and those models are still coming in, and I'm starting to realize just how large of a collection of unpainted models I'm back up to now. After selling off all my gaming armies, I thought, I'll just work slow, I'll just buy models that I'm going to paint in the near future, and then that kind of got out of control. Over 2 years, I ended up having at least as many, if not more, unpainted models than I did before I sold those armies. So I'm trying to limit my impulse buys. I also didn't realize when Josh showed them that like they were pre-painted, and he just like added to the paint job. I thought they were just plastic toys. So I kind of didn't want to either paint over like crummy, thick paint jobs from wherever they came from, or have to strip them and start over, and you sometimes don't know how that'll affect whatever material they're made out of, because again, I don't know where they're made from. So I was able to hold off. Yeah, I'm usually pretty weak too, Lena. I'm trying to be stronger. All right, we're gonna go back to her hair. So I want to start defining where the shadows are going to be on her hair. So I need a shadow color. I could just use this other color I have mixed. I'm going to try it. It's got a little bit of a red undertone to it as well, and it's not a bad thing to use colors in multiple places on your model. It helps tie everything together. So we'll see how this works. I love these holders, but every so often when you have a model that has the top of the model really close to the holder, it can be tricky. So the tips for painting hair is that hair is hard. Hair is tricky to get right, and I don't always get it. I don't always nail it. And the tricky part about hair is that it just, you don't highlight it or shade it the same way as other things because it has a natural shine to it. You tend to get, like if you were to look at pictures, especially like shampoo commercial models or something where things are really, really shiny, like where you get the shine is you kind of get this like halo effect around the model's head. So you tend to get shine like here and then near the bottom of the hair as well. So you get a couple different shines. So you don't necessarily want to highlight the highest point of the model, like the top of her head. It's kind of along the side. And then you need to shade away from those spots. So just because it operates a little differently, it can be kind of tricky to get a realistic look. You also don't want to highlight like the whole strand, because very rarely is like a whole strand of hair going to be shining in your direction, reflecting the light. All right, so I'm switching to just the darker color that I added to the paints. Do a couple passes with this. This is definitely a brown with a little, it's actually a little cooler brown, which is good for the shadows. So you notice I'm shading down like near the roots of her part. You tend to get darker color down there. I'm going to do one really watered down pass just over the whole top area of the hair, just to kind of get down into some of the crevices and help create a little depth. blend the layers a little bit. Let that dry and see where we're at. I'm adding a little camo yellow to the color mix for the leather. I'm going to start highlighting it, adding some wear and tear. Well, how did my Thursday form filing go? I was doing getting all the forms filled out for my accountant to finish off our taxes. We had did all our business taxes back in January, and then I had to do all our stuff for our personal taxes. So I think it went okay. I mean, we'll see if she yells at me because I didn't fill something out right or give her the information. I'll find out in a few days. I was able to get it all done, so that was nice. I was planning to paint or something that night instead, but I got to thinking that some of my business travel that's coming up, and then when those Atlantis Miniatures models come in, I need to focus on those, and April will be here before you know it, so I figured I would take advantage of having a little downtime from what I had to get done in the hobby to take care of some adulting. So when I paint leather like this, I usually don't worry, or I try not to be quite as smooth with my layers. I want there to be a little texture. Hey Lena, thanks for stopping by. Sorry, oh, if the stream's still going, I'll be on afterwards. Cool. Yeah, I don't have any, like I said, I don't have a lot of stuff going on today, so I might stream for longer than a normal amount of time. So I'll just keep going till I need a break. So hope to see you later. Technology's crazy sometimes, I swear. She lives in Denmark, which is just about as far as you can get from me. And yet she can come hang out, watch me paint. We can chat. It's pretty crazy. Right now with this, I'm mainly focusing on just starting to define some volumes here that are going to be a little lighter. And eventually some of those areas are going to then have some roughing up kind of idea where you start to see the weather getting worn along spots where it would naturally wear. The main thing is just start building in some varying color layers and textures, and you just don't want your models to look flat. Yeah, he said that the world is starting to feel small, which is a cool thing. And I agree. Especially when we have a hobby like this where, in any given region, there might not be that many people who share our passion for this hobby. If I was to only talk to or share with anybody who was within 15 miles of me or something, that's probably not a ton of people. But when we can communicate across the world, suddenly the community feels a lot bigger, a lot more opportunities to share and get to know each other. I really like it. Might have to go back and do some more shading on her hair, but I'm going to start doing some highlighting. I haven't been watching the Olympics. I usually enjoy the Olympics quite a bit, but I will tell you that this year I really haven't had any interest in watching them. There could be a couple reasons for that. One is that we actually don't have cable anymore. We just have like Netflix and things like that. So it's kind of harder for me to catch them. Haven't really felt like going out of my way to try to do that. But also I was watching some documentaries on all the doping scandals, like the Russian Olympic doping scandals and Tour de France doping scandals and stuff like that. And it just starting to make me quite suspect about the results of these big major sporting events. And I also just find the older I get, I'm starting to just care less and less about the outcomes of athletic competition. It's just doesn't get me passionate like it used to. All right, what I'm going to do So to highlight this hair, I'm going to add some of this color, SS Camo Highlights, which it's a very flesh tone type color. And I want to lighten the brown without going quite as stark as what would happen as if I added white to it. And so you should be able to see where I start focusing. This is just the first layer of highlights, but we're going to focus it along like a halo around her head. I'm not going to go all the way to the top of her crown of her head. Uh-oh, somebody's feeling neglected. Might have to go hug a cat in a minute here. We did. We cooked a dinner. We sat and watched Black Mirror. Cuddled up on the couch together. It was a nice night. You know, if watching episodes of a show that makes you think the world is a terrible place, I guess. Just kidding. Black Mirror is really well done, but it definitely holds up a disturbing mirror to society. Yeah, I'll keep working on the hair. How about you? What'd you guys do for Valentine's Day? Did you stay home with the kid? Did you guys get a break? Oh man. Sorry to hear your kids were sick. It's gotta be a rough feeling as a parent when your kid isn't feeling well and probably is too young to really understand why. They want to feel better so bad, and you want to help them, but you can't really do much. It's gotta be a tough feeling. That's good. Well, I'm sorry I'm not as good. I'm not a great conversationalist when I'm painting all the time. If people aren't asking me questions, I get pretty focused on what I'm doing. So I appreciate you hanging out, even though clearly I'm boring you. Kidding. Would I grow a beard? So I can't grow a beard. I can get stubble. Gets to about, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch long or so. And then it just stops growing. So while I'm not opposed to beards in, I just don't really have that option. So on the plus side, my facial hair doesn't grow in very fast, so I don't have to shave every day. So in that way, I'm very ungorilla-like, not a very hairy dude. My brother can't grow one either, and neither can my dad, so it's definitely hereditary. As a cat keeps running past my feet. I know, I was just making fun of myself, Heath. I really need to reach out again and get a co-host. See if I can get Gray. And hope he doesn't get punched in the face again before the stream so he can actually make it this time. Hey, welcome back. We're still here. You didn't really miss much. Just me and Mr. Heath hanging out. I'll show you what we're doing right now. So I've been working on her hair. I got a little bit on her leather. Started laying down some of the, like some texture on those leather areas. Been working on her hair. Oh, we have a visitor. Sancho came to see me. We'll see if I can get him to stay on my lap. Hey, bud, where are you going? Thanks. I think I might get adventurous with the hair and try to glaze some color into the recesses to create some interesting shadows. I'm going to finish this highlight first, and then I'll probably overglaze the entire hair to bring some things together, because this highlight's going to start to get a little stark. Oh, fix the autofocus. Or fix the focus. You're right, Heath. There was a lot of personal sharing going on, some good bonding moments. I think we should make Lena tell us a story. So I've been curious, where does your moniker name, the Aurora in a bag, where does that come from? It's due to a cat. All right, I'm intrigued even more now. I'll hear the story. Hey, Pack Team, what's up? That's funny. That's an interesting. It's funny how that works. The names, where they come from, and how they stick with us. Hey, thanks for stopping by, Heath. Appreciate it. Pack Team, I was thinking more about your conversion that you showed me. And are the legs glued into position yet, or can you still reposition the model? So I was almost thinking about, like, can you give him a position almost like he's like ice skating kind of idea? Like kind of the same idea as running, but both feet would be on the ground at the same time. So like maybe his right leg and left arm are sort of in a forward position, and his right arm and left leg are sort of back, just in a position almost like he's balanced for ice skating. It might be kind of an interesting dynamic pose and capture some sort of realism to how maybe the robot would move. Because he doesn't really have like a shape like a Segway or something where you would think he would be naturally balanced to just stay upright on two wheels. So maybe give some of that attention to detail about how he would have to be changing positions to stay balanced as he moves. Anyway, just an idea. Kind of, but it looks like both his legs are back behind him, at least from the angle I saw. Like it doesn't look like the like one of the feet is as far forward as it would be if he was actually doing that. It kind of looks like almost like I said, like a Segway, like the wheels are in the back and he's like leaning forward but staying balanced. So what I'm doing now is I overglazed the highlight areas to keep them from getting too like stark and jump off the model at you. But now I'm doing some extra passes, but I'm focusing on the edges of where I was highlighting to help blend them into the shadows more. And then we'll work again doing a little more shading. I'm liking this better. Wish I could get the color exactly right. On camera, it's showing up a little redder and a little lighter than it looks in person. But and we'll go in and continue to do some shadowing, but again, I don't want her hair to be too shiny and lustrous, because I mean, again, she's like fighting zombies. She's not going to a photo shoot, so I'm gonna have some natural highlight, but have it be a little bit more of a dirty hair look, which doesn't have as much reflection on it. It looks a little more brown. Just the camera's picking up a slight bit more red than what's on the model. Like it, not too much, but just a slight bit. All right, I am going to do one of my favorite things when I paint brown, which is to shade with purple, especially sunset purple. Yeah, you know, one of the things I found assembling the Redemptor Dreadnoughts recently is it feels like they have really cool articulation in some areas, and in other areas it's really lacking. Like right around the like the waist area. I wish there was more I could do with repositioning the things as they attach to the waist. Yeah, but I agree with you. You can cut that nib off and it gives you some extra movement, but um, there's still only so much play you have from side to side on the models. Like I wish there was a larger, almost like cylinder that gave him more room to pivot. Like his top and bottom half are so close together that there's not a lot of side to side movement you can do. Like if you want something really dynamic, like one of the legs standing up to stomp on something, you're just a little limited in how much you can do that. Now, ultimately, I think it's going to be really hard for this camera to really show it, so you might have to wait till pictures that I post on Twitter. But one of the cool things about adding some color down into your shadows, just creates a lot more visual interest, and things don't look so flat and uninteresting. My wife left a little bit ago, and the cats are now feeling very neglected. So one is in my lap and the other one's running around the table crying. So again, this camera is picking up more red than what it looks like in real life. So it looks a little bit more purple down in the shadows than it actually looks in real life. But that's the idea. Now I'm going to go in with even darker color and just hit the places I really want it to shade. I know their life is so rough. They have to make sure to tell us about it, about how neglected they feel. And I'm gonna call that done on the hair. I like it. Get creative, make them your own. Let's throw some yellow sand in here. I don't remember what I used last time, but something like that. In case you can't tell, I just like to throw colors together as I go. I'm not very good about keeping a journal or even remembering what I used half an hour ago. Just go by sight, what kind of color I want to add in, and then whatever paint is closest to me that has the properties I need. Tends to be how I operate. Yeah, I tried last year to force myself to start making a journal, and I just couldn't keep up with it. I get too much into my painting and then start forgetting to write stuff down, and then it doesn't take very long before I don't have much. I have one model, the Harry the Hat that I painted last year that I donated to charity. I have the colors I used for his purple shirt. And then like half of what I used for one other thing on him, and then everything else is blank on that page. And the orc I painted around the same time, all I did was write down the base color I used for his skin. And then from there on, I never wrote anything down. So I wasn't very good at keeping a journal. I'm going to do it for at least some of the dwarf models I have coming from Atlantis Miniatures, though, because I'm going to type up a tutorial that he can use on his website. So I'll really have to force myself to take the time. Probably do more thinking ahead of time of planning out what I'm going to use, which will help. I'll have a plan going in. With Ali here, I'm just sort of making it up as I go for the most part. Which is the more fun way to paint. Yeah, again, I don't tend to think that far ahead with most models that I paint in terms of colors. It's really a lot more of, I'll have a starting place. I usually do the skin or something like that. And then it's just whenever I get to the next part of the model, it's what do I think is going to look good with what I've already done, and what am I in the mood to paint? She doesn't want to listen to me either, huh? Or she just knows how serious you are while you're watching painting streams. So I know that as I'm putting this on here, it's starting to not look as much like leather anymore. But I'm just building up textures. I'm going to glaze my leather color back over all this and start shading. Hold on. Sorry about that. I would have just let it go, but again, I'm expecting a package from England, and they would force me to sign for that. So, yeah, that's not too far off. And again, that's what I was expecting, or wondering if it was going to be the minis from Atlantis. I don't want to have to make a special trip to the post office to pick them up if I just ignored the doorbell. It's kind of a weird, I don't know how common this is across the country, but here the post office that's responsible for delivering our mail is further away than 2 other post offices. So it's quite a hassle to have to actually drive to the one that holds our mail if I miss a delivery that I have to sign for. And I'm really not all that close to the other 2 anyway, either. They're probably each maybe 15 minutes away. And the one that holds my mail is like 25 minutes away. I don't really understand it. Before I glaze over, I'm just adding some dark spots, some blemishes. What are 1911s? Are those her boots? Oh, her pistols. No, I just haven't gotten to them yet. I was planning to paint them a pretty flat black color. I still have to paint her guns, her gloves, and her boots, and I still have to finish the shirt too. I don't have any highlighting or shading on the shirt. I do not know firearms. That is not my specialty. I appreciate that. I will try to do them justice. Yeah, thanks. I agree. The jean shorts look pretty good. The wearing, like the worn spots, made it look really realistic. So I went to my black, start defining the darkest area of the shadows. I'm going to go back in with some purple in a little bit here into these same areas and give a little color to them. I like shading the darkest areas of darker colors like these dark browns with the scale flat black, the color called flat black. Does a pretty good job of darkening things up when you really water it down without completely just taking over. And making everything look too dark. I don't know if you guys can hear all this stuff. We got a great symphony of sounds in the background. Planes flying overhead, neighbors doing yard work. Don't they know we're streaming in here? Trying to make sure that the final finish doesn't look too much like wood. Sometimes I have a tendency to, my leather comes out looking a little more like wood than leather. That's good. You guys aren't hearing too much of this stuff. The microphone I have is supposed to be focused more like within 3 feet or so. So I'm glad. think I'm happy with that. Straps on her across her butt need a little work. All right. Oh, thank you very much for the vote of confidence. All right, so this is the color I was using on her shirt before. I want to do a little bit of highlighting. Up on her shoulders. Just trying to see if there's paint colors specifically that make it sound like they're part of a... There we go. there's a few options when we're, like I said, I don't want this highlight to be crazy stark, because I really want it to be like an old faded shirt that not going to have a lot of color variation up to its highlights. We have a few options to make the transition pretty subtle and smooth. So one option, which is what I've started with, but sometimes I lose patience. And also, this is not really happy with the paint consistency, how it's going on. The finish is looking a little chalky. So we can slowly layer up very, very thin and just keep pulling our brush towards the highlights. Another option, which I might switch over to actually, it's clearly not the same color. I'm going to have my paint shaker, since this is a new paint and I'm not sure how well it was mixed. What I'm going to do is I'm actually now going to I'm going to paint on the spots that I want to be lighter. I'm going to paint them on a little thicker and essentially sketch out the volume. And then I will blend the two layers together. Yeah, this is raw and uncut. I showed you guys the whole process, including the mistakes. This is not it's not a finished product. Sorry, cat getting in trouble. He's trying to climb in a box that has X-Acto knives and all sorts of other things that he should not be. I agree, which is why I was so super excited when you asked me to do that on your model. It's not that big of a deal. It just adds time. Oh yeah? You just want the plasma cannon and the heavy flamer? Is that just what the community has sort of settled on in terms of what's the best options, or that's the role you want it to play in your army? It might be too late for me to do that. I think I might have gotten far enough along on your model where those were already glued in. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. The appointment go well?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let me know. Stomach is growling like crazy. Probably have to end before too long here. Come back in this afternoon and I'll just finish up the green I'm working on right now. Just make the coat nice and solid where I want it to be solid, and I'll pick up doing the blending and the shading tomorrow. So any final words for this morning for the good of the stream? Pretty happy with where we're at with her at the moment. Think it's looking good. Anyway, everybody who stopped by, appreciate it. Thanks for coming by and checking it out. I'll be streaming again tomorrow. Yeah, I'm glad you could make it, Lena. I'll be streaming again tomorrow from 2 to 4 my time, which is 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to check out where we go from here on the shirt, and if Pack Team sends me those pictures of the guns, maybe we'll work on those, maybe the gloves. We'll see what we get to next time. But hope to see you again. Take care.